It's a lovely early autumn evening and it's milking time, and Pinky here is producing about 2 litres of milk a day for us at this time of year, and that's more than we can consume ourselves in any given day. So we're making a lot of cheese at the moment, and therefore back in the kitchen what I'm going to show you is a simple recipe that we use for cheese making. Well, we're using 20 litres of milk, and we're going to start off the cheese making process in these 2 pans here. Each will have 10 litres of milk in. That one's already got it in. This one I'm just going to put the last bits of milk in now. What you'd normally do if you were pasteurising your milk would be to lower the temperature after it's been pasteurised down to 25 degrees centigrade. But we don't pasteurize our milk because we just use this for ourselves. So what we're going to do is actually raise the temperature to 25 degrees centigrade, which is why these pans at the moment are on the cooker. Well, you can see the temperature on this is about 21 degrees, so it's got about 4 to go. Well, this pan is now up to temperature, so what we're going to do is add in the 2 ingredients that help to make the cheese. And what we've got first is what we call the starter, and it's a bacteriological culture which you buy as a powder, and you add it to milk and then you freeze it, and when you need it you just thaw it out and add it in. And a bowl like that is what we need for the 10 litres. And then we're going to add rennet. Now, rennet is the chemical that you get in babies' stomachs, in mammals' stomachs, and what it does, it effectively curdles the milk in the stomach. And you only need a tiny amount of this, so we're going to put in 2 drops per litre. And that means for that enormous pan there, that'll only be 20 drops for the whole pan. So we'll give this a stir, and we're going to leave this to stand for a few hours. In fact, we're actually going to leave it to stand overnight. Probably doesn't need that length of time, but the other pan will soon be ready, and then I'm going to go and milk our goat and get even more milk to deal with. Well, yesterday we treated the milk so that it would separate into curds and whey, and ta-da! We now have a pan where the curds are a thick layer on the top and the whey, the liquid, is underneath, and this is now ready to go to the next stage of the cheese making. Well, the first thing we need to do is to cut this into small pieces, and you simply take a knife and cut right through, and you may see that this does look a bit like cottage cheese. In fact, that's exactly what it is. That's cheese. Cottage cheese is effectively cheese that hasn't been put through the cheese press, and it's cottage cheese is a really simple way of making a cheese that effectively has to be used up pretty quickly, because otherwise it does go off. Unlike the hard cheese, which is what we're making here, which is effectively your way of preserving your milk. It lasts much longer. And then we'll cut it over here, sideways as well. So eventually this is all just sort of cubes of curd. That's some of the curd there. really does look like cottage cheese, because as I say, that's exactly what it is. Now I'm going to put that back, and I'm going to show you in here the whey that's underneath the curds, but we're going to keep them all together in the pan for a few minutes because we're going to apply heat to this. So if I press that down, you can see the whey coming through. It's that clearish liquid there, and just to show you the lumps, there we go, that's them there. So about 8 centimeters depth of curds there, and we're going to apply heat, and we're going to bring the temperature up to 45 degrees centigrade. As you can see, this is bobbing around about the 44-45 degrees mark, a bit over there. So what we're going to do is let that stand for about 10 minutes at that temperature, and then we're going to strain off the whey. There's no brain science involved in straining the curds. It's dead simple, dead straightforward. All you need is a large bowl, a sieve, and a bit of cheesecloth. So from one pan alone we've got 2 big sievefuls of cheese curds straining away. This pan contains the whey that's left over, and this is the liquid that you get when you've extracted the curds. Now there is a little bit of curds left in here, and it's very fine particles, and at the moment we're not able to extract them, but there is a way of doing it to make another cheese, and at some point we will try that, because at the moment this all goes into our chicken's mash, into our poultry mash, or we use this in baking, but we would like to be able to get the last bit of cheese that we possibly can from the whey. So at some point we're going to try a recipe to actually make a cheese from the particles that are left. Anyway, the 2 cheeses, the 2 strainers we have here will be left until later this evening, and then I've got another pan of curds to strain off as well, and then they will all be prepared for the next stage. We've finished straining the curds and put them into the bowl there, and we've weighed that. That's 1.9 kilos, so we've therefore measured out 1% of the weight of that in salt, so that's 19 grams of salt ready to be mixed in with the curds. Well, all the salt has been added and it's been thoroughly stirred, so at this stage it's still quite a soft cheese. It's actually quite a very pleasant soft cheese, so we're not going to use it as a soft cheese though, because we want it as a hard cheese. So to do that we're going to have to put it through the press, and it needs to go into a mould. So there is the mould, and we've lined it with another cheesecloth. I'm going to add the curds to it. Well, as you can see, the mould has now been put into the cheese press. Well, these wooden blocks, although they're marked £10, they don't actually weigh £10, but what it does, it sets the tension on the springs, and that's the tension that squeezes down on the mould. And it's had about 15 minutes in the mould already, and what we're going to do is just replace the £10 with £20 weights or blocks of wood, and that means that we've got to wind that down a bit more, and then in about half an hour to an hour after that we're going to replace the £20 with the £50, and that'll be left to stand overnight. The cheese has been in the press overnight and it's been squeezed down a bit, and as you can see there's some whey that's been drained off. In the bowl here we have the wax, which is melting at the moment, and here we have the cheese from earlier today, and what we're going to do is we're going to use this brush to paint the wax onto the surface of the cheese. Well, we've still got a bit of way to go on waxing this one, because we've got to finish the rear side there and underneath as well. But in best Blue Peter style, we've got a couple that we prepared earlier. In fact, these were prepared a couple of weeks ago, so as you can see, fully covered in wax. Be at least a couple of weeks yet before we can start to eat that one. And here's a smaller one, but it was from a rounded mould, but again fully waxed. And finally, this one wasn't waxed at all, and we didn't put cheesecloth on it, so we simply just put it in our cold storage area. And we did try a bit from there a couple of weeks ago. It was very strong, but we're going to have a go at trying a little bit more this evening to see how this has matured. So, here we go. It's actually got a very strong flavour, but it's not overpowering. That's nice. Oh, that's good. Success. Hurrah. I think I need to try some of my homemade wine to go with this as well.